Rebekah.
Hey.
How are you? How are you today?
Good, thank you. I'm doing well. The sun is shining.
It's cold.
Yeah, it's cold, but
the sun is shining.
Yeah, how are you?
I am well. I'm super excited to speak to Rebekah Young because, I mean, I'm lucky to actually be friends with you. So this does feel just like a good friend, chinwag, as we like to say in the UK. But for people that don't know you, could you please introduce yourself?
So I'm Rebekah Young. You can probably tell my accent's very different to Paula's. I'm from the northeast of England, and I'm a singer. I moved to London for music and have been in London since 2020 and have been releasing music since 2020 also. Yeah.
Amazing. And what are like 3 words that maybe your close friends and family would describe you as?
Well, they're not like definite words.
Okay.
But I love to be the centre of attention.
So is this all hyphenated? Because I definitely said 3 words.
I know, maybe that's the one, that's the 3
the
words.
phrase.
You know, I mean, that's all of it. I love to be centre of attention kind of thing.
Nice.
Also, I think just like Jesus loving, like he's my number one. And then loud. I think
that's why she's really far from the mic.
Yeah, but hopefully I'm far enough that it's not going to be a disruption in contrast between us both. But yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, I'm also very loud, so it kind of works out well. But yeah, you're here today as an artist and not just as Paula's friend. And we're going to ask you about some of the music that you've put out, some of the music that's coming out, but also just like you as an artist, you as a creative, and just how like God has blessed you and encouraged you and the words that you have to encourage other people. Okay, starting with things that are like every artist thinks about this. What's my sound going to be? What's my genre going to be? And you're kind of self-described as like a neo-soul R&B vibe, you know?
Yeah,
an R&B babe.
Yeah.
How did you kind of go to that genre of music?
Yeah, that in itself is a question because I grew up on everything, grew up in a Christian household as well, so we're including like God TV, like Jesus culture, all of the bangers and all that stuff. So I grew up on such an eclectic mix of music. My dad's heavily into like kind of rock and roll, and my mum always sang around the house and sung like Ella Fitzgerald and stuff like that. So yeah, just like a random mixture. And then I actually did a lot of musical theatre growing up as well, so doing that kind of built me my confidence of like my range, I think, as a singer. I think, but my actual genre that I love is R&B, neo-soul, so like your Amy Winehouse, your oldies, Ella Fitzgerald, as I've said, and just those real soulful singers who kind of tell stories through their music. I think that's what I wanted. I was like, I want to be able to tell stories. And I think that genre is possibly one of the best ones for it.
True. I see that. I definitely see that. And it's interesting you mentioned doing things like musical theatre growing up. Were you like me? Like, did you sing in church, or did you, like, you grew up in a Christian home as well? Did you get to develop in that way of like regularly performing or ministering in front of people?
Yeah, I did. I think probably from like 15, 16, I started being part of the church band and stuff, which was great. But I think I really noticed that I wasn't necessarily doing it for worship or like ministering. But I recognised, because I was doing musical theatre at the time, it was heavily about like performance and like, oh, did anyone think it sounded good? Like, and it was just, and I think also my naivety of like being so young as well, like personally I hadn't fully like figured out my relationship with God. And so I took a step back from that between the ages of like 18 and 20. And yeah, so it was quite nice, because then I got to refresh myself of like, okay, why do we worship? Like, why is worship different to performing, and how can you do those differently but also give your everything to both of them in the different spaces you do them? So yeah,
that is so interesting you mentioned that, because the sound that we just kind of established that you like and that you kind of make is that R&B neo soul, and that's extremely different from like the conventional typical like congregational worship, if you like, or congregational music that you hear in a church. How do you, or where do you think there is space for, in Christian circles, in Christian communities, for the type of music that you enjoy and you do?
It's a really good question.
It is.
I think there's space for it in a lot of capacities. I mean, I'm just saying this because I was recently on my Instagram, but Asha, Elia, is in Canada at the minute doing a conference called Galentine's Vibes.
Yes.
And I think for her, it's like, oh, that's so amazing that her music can be like ministry in this space for Christians, which I love. And I was on a call with people from the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, because my job is a youth worker at the minute. And they were kind of mentioning about the conference that they're doing, and they were like, well, how do we get artists? And I like just sent them an email through. I was like, here's like a bunch of people who I think would do a great job. And I think those kind of spaces, you know, these very like Christian events or these non-Christian events that we're making evangelistic, like these are where these artists can be, and this is a perfect platform for them. But also I believe that like churches can host like some amazing, I know your church Imprint hosts some really, really great like music nights. And you know, they internally or externally they can invite non-Christians. I think a lot of Christian artists at the minute can make their music evangelistic and also feed the church. So that's what I love about it. It's not just one size fits all. It's not just for Christians, but it can speak so much into non-Christians' lives as well.
That is really, really beautiful. And I think it's interesting that you mention that sometimes in order for Christians and churches and Christian communities to build spaces that are conducive to sounds that are not traditional, they might need to like pivot a bit. They might need to have a Wednesday service. They might need to have a Friday night service. Or if it is on a Sunday, like a normal service, they might have to just change a bit to include that. So it's really interesting. And I'm also seeing that a lot more, like you mentioned, with like that conference that they would like to do, also what Asha's doing, what Imprint have done. I think people are aware of that. Like these are, like God doesn't stop at a genre. He doesn't stop at R&B. Like, oh, I could do everything else, but that's just the baby making music. That's just the lovers music.
So true, and that's why it's so significant when you see artists like Asha, Elia, Shireen, and other people like just breaking that stereotype of what R&B is. Like, obviously, it's been birthed out of a very like sexualized culture. It's been birthed out of a lot of, you know, just artists who that's all they want to sing about. It's not necessarily they were forced into singing it, but that's what they wanted to write about. And it's so amazing to see Christians like change what that genre is all about. Like, and I'm not ashamed to say I sing R&B now, because I know that like God is making all things new. He restores things, he brings it, and it is worship to him. Like what I'm singing is worship to him. So that
is so lovely. I think I'm going to take a step back, but you said this at the beginning. You were like, you can definitely tell that we have different accents. Like I'm from London, and you came to the. I always think this is amazing. Every time you say it, I'm just like, fair. You felt called to relocate to London for music. Let that sink in. Like, there are so many people going to be watching this, listening to this, who, you know, are not from the UK or not from London or not from a major city, and they're just like, I'm called to do music, and I'm also called to move somewhere else. But to actually have the like courage to do that, because it's not like your mum, your dad, and your whole entire family came with you. It's like you packed a bag. You were like, bye guys. And I would just love for you to, as much as you would like to say, unpack that journey and just like what God did and showed you that made you confident to do that.
Basically, when I was 8 years old, for some reason I was like, I'm moving to London. Like, that's what I want to do. That's what, my brother had just moved because he did an art school. He did a drama school here, and I was like, I just want to be there because that's where it's all happening. Obviously, I was doing musical theatre at the time, and that's the kind of route that I wanted to go down, in my own mind. And then I got into a relationship, and that was long term, and I was like, why would I move to London when I'm in a relationship? But then I ended up, I don't know why I didn't say yes to that, but I said yes to doing a gap year in Manchester. And then everything just shifted. I was like, there's so much more to my life than if I just stay in Middlesbrough, where I'm from. It's this very small town. Everyone knows everyone. Like, and if you want to be a musician in that town, it's not necessarily going to do what you want it to do. Like, back in the day before social media and stuff, everyone would move to capitals because that's where they would get noticed. That's where
Nashville.
And even like it was bizarre that the Beatles came out of Liverpool, because who knows where Liverpool is, kind of thing. So it wasn't the norm to kind of stay in your hometown and do music. And then when I was in Manchester, I just really felt like God was like, I'm saying yes to going to London. And I was like, what? Like, I can't believe this. Like, God, like, how would you say yes to something that I want to do? Like, surely your plan is greater, and his plan is greater, because that was his plan for me. And it was 2020. I was planning on moving that year. Obviously, everyone knows what happened that year. And I was back home, and I didn't get to finish my job that I was doing that was helping me save up to move. I was just working in central Manchester at the time. And I left that job, and then all of a sudden, like, I was like, God, I need this money to be able to move to London. And then I got like my holiday pay from this job, all reimbursed, because for COVID we couldn't obviously have all of our holiday pay given to us, and basically it was exactly enough. It was exactly the right amount to get me to move to London. Like, I wanted to save up £1,000, which isn't a lot of money. But
I'm like, where are you gonna live with that?
No, honestly, I don't know why I was like, bro, like £1,000 is gonna be. What?
I thought you were gonna be like 10 grand or something. No,
£1,000. God hears the little things.
He really does.
God hears the little things.
He's out here making the fish multiply clearly,
because I had £250 in my account, and then I got given the £750 from my old job, and it was obviously the right amount. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm gonna move. I was looking at flats. Where am I going to go with £1,000? I don't even have a job. And then so I'm like, God, like, come on, please, like, make a way. Then my friend that I met in Manchester, he said his parents rent out a room in London. And I was like, okay, I'll give this a go. Called them up, blah, blah, blah. Basically, September comes, I'm moving in with this host family. And then the same week, I go to their church to check it out. That church is exactly the church that I want to be a part of. A week later, I get a job with them to like be a youth worker. So like in this space of a year, like my whole thing of like London is just a pipe dream. It's too expensive. What would I do? How would I like afford to live there? I'm looking at these central city churches because I'm like, everyone needs to commute to go to church, and then I end up finding it like the place to live, the church to be at, and a job to kind of sustain me while I'm here. And I'm just like, God is so good, because he just sees every little thing that we want. And if it's in his plan as well, he'll make a way for it to come to fruition. And I'm so grateful that I'm now like still in London, like 2.5 years down the line. And he's still just as faithful, whether that's provided with provision, for like money, or like where I'm living, what I'm doing, how he's supplying my every need. That is so encouraging, because and terrifying, can I just say? Because if I was out here like, God, I just need £1,000, God would be like, where are you moving? Is that your train ticket? Where are you going with £1,000?
Is that your train ticket? Because what are you doing with it?
£1,000 is not a lot.
It's not a lot to relocate cities.
It's not a lot.
Oh my God.
But the faith I had was a mustard seed,
No, your faith is big, girl, because you thought you only needed £1,000. So your faith was big. It wasn't small.
Oh
Don't belittle that faith. That faith was big. That faith is big.
It's big faith.
So like, what's one line you'd give to someone who is in the same place where they have that like inkling, that like desire to relocate as a thing, or to step out, or to like decide to do music, or whatever that big like dream that they've always had is? What's that?
I just say, just do it. Like, if Called Out Music has a song of like, if God's not in it, I don't want it, or something like that. And if God is in it, like, he will reveal himself and he'll make it known to you. And if it's a desire that isn't budging, like, I would just say, just go for it. Like, just do it. Just push that door, because as much as we can push a door and like God doesn't want it to be open, well then we don't like keep trying. We'll just go to another door and then push that, and then if it opens, then we can go through that. And he just he is the master of everything. Like, he just knows what the right thing is for us, like how we can step fully into more of what he wants for us. And ultimately how we can be more fruitful. I think that's one of the greatest things that I've learned in the past, like, 2 years of my walk is, like, I just want to be fruitful. I just want to have, you know, I want to obviously get to heaven one day and for God to say, well done, good and faithful servant, because you followed me, you trusted me, and you've bore the fruit of what it is that you've done as well.
Yeah, that's really good.
And so I just say, do it.
That's really good, Rebekah Young.
Yeah.
That is really, really good. Yeah, just with the parable of the talents. You were given your talent, and it wasn't, I'm just going to stay in my room, stay in my house in Middlesbrough, you know, eat mum's food and feel really good.
Exactly.
It was, I'm going to step out. And I want to just say, like, and you were quite young. It wasn't like you were, like, established in, like, life and you were, like, savings in the bank and stuff. You were like, God, I'm actually trusting you in my youth.
Yeah.
You know, with my young.
I was 19. I know, I didn't go to uni. Oh my gosh, still to this day, people are like, so what did you study at uni? I'm like, didn't go.
Didn't go. Girl, I did. I've been doing a gap year all my life.
I'm still on that gap year.
Still
on my gap year.
It's rolling.
Yeah, it's rolling.
No, that's amazing. Even just part of the journey of doing music, moving to London, being an artist. You're also part of a collective called JC4Me Collective. Yeah. Can you tell us all about that, what you've loved about being a part of the collective?
So that's quite a big part of, like, moving here as well. So I met Tilo, who, like, kind of heads up the collective in Manchester back in 2018. And at this point I'm like, oh, I've moved to Manchester, London's pipe dream, like, I don't think it'll happen, I don't think God wants me to do it. And then Tilo's like, you can definitely do it. Like, he gave me the advice that I've just given to you, just do it. Like, he's like, come on, let's go. And we kind of worked on an album together that year with a few other people, and it was really fun. Like, I loved it, and I'd never experienced recording or writing in the same way that I did that year. And that was confirmation to me. I was like, okay, God, like, you're saying stuff about music here, and I know it's about music as well. And then I took the job to move, and then, well, actually, before I took the job to move, like, over COVID, myself and Tilo did my first project, which was Sometimes Shooting Stars Aeroplanes. And basically, like, what this collective is that we're a part of is just recognising that Jesus is Lord. Like, we care about who Jesus is, and we want other people to know who he is as well. And then kind of just being creative, having this gospel arts group that is filled with people who are excited and want to create new things, want to create music or podcasts or whatever, to kind of feed into the kingdom and share the good news of Jesus as well, and talk about real things. And so that's what that first project was. It was kind of me, like, talking about some things for the first time. It was a lot about relationships, which kind of embarrassing, but yeah, so it was a really fun first project that we did. And then that was for me, like, coming here and being like, I've already created some sort of network of music just by having a collective of people around me who support me and are excited about my music as well. And so that was I don't know if I answered the question.
No, you did, because I was also going to ask you more about the first like project, because it was like a full, I think it was an EP, but it was 10 tracks, so it's pretty much an album.
So it was a nice marketing technique that we did, because then, like, we fully set it out as like an EP. It's shorter than 30 minutes, so it's like, it is a small kind of body of work. If you had it on a vinyl, it would be like an EP. But at the same time, it is 10 tracks.
So it feels like an album.
So it feels like an album,
really
and
smart.
It's a good sit through, you know. There's a lot of things.
She's like, listen to it, it's great. It's really interesting that you would start off with a whole body of work though. Because that's not normally what artists would do.
And I also, like, bear in mind, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, Tino was like kind of leading me through it, because he'd released projects like numerous of times, and he's a little bit older than me as well, so he was like fully aware of what he was doing, and I was just like, okay, let's do it, let's just do that,
I'm ready.
We'll do that and whatever. So it was good.
You're very funny. No, that's really cool. And even onto, like, one of the singles that probably, I think, is the most recent thing you've dropped, because, girl, where's the music? Where's the music?
And let me just say, this year I'm gonna release some stuff, and I'm quite proud of it. So
okay, proud of that. We're glad to hear that. But before, hopefully by the time this is out, you guys would be like, what's she talking about? There's loads of Rebekah Young music. But the part of the Amen Worldwide project that you did with Asha and with Sarah and Natalie. Rejoice. Beautiful song.
That song.
Beautiful song.
That song.
We actually spoke to Sarah about it, and we spoke to Asha about it, I believe, and they kind of just talked about how it was, like putting the song together and stuff. Asha? No, not Asha. Is it Asha on that song?
Yeah.
It is Asha, yes.
Asha and Sarah.
It's Asha, right? It's Asha and Sarah, yeah.
Asha and Sarah.
And talking about like how praise put you guys together and how like your voices just worked really well and stuff. And of course we did a live at the time the song came out, and that was incredible back in the day, back in COVID and them times.
Yeah.
But how was it just like being a part of, like, obviously you were used to being a part of a collective, and now here you are again doing a whole collaboration thing. But what was it about this song that felt different?
It was a different genre for me. These girls are like, obviously Asha's R&B, but she's also got this pop side to her.
Yeah.
Sarah's very poppy. And for me, I was like, okay, so how do I do this? And I'm used to beat tracks and stuff, but also like it's different creating a body, like something to be proud of when you're not working with the people. Like we were doing it all from a distance.
Yeah, it was all virtual.
And I did not expect what had happened. Obviously, like Asha and Sarah are very established artists, so I was happy to piggyback off like everything. And it was a really good song to do as well. I think at the time I was being really challenged by what like joy was and like how God. It was really funny. The weekend it came out, so the Friday. On the Sunday, I was preaching at my church about joy. Like, it was really weird.
Couldn't make it up.
God, you planned it. But, so I was learning so much about that topic as a whole. And then we released it, and it was just a bit of a whirlwind, to be honest. And I'm still very grateful for the response it's got, because I think we just hit 500,000 the other day.
Casual. Small.
But yeah, very different to my experience of when I initially released music. It was a blow up. It was a bit like, this is intense. Like I didn't expect this. I had 1,000 streams a day for the first couple of days for the project, and my first single that I released, Tender, got to 20,000 listens or whatever, like over a year, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm blown up, I'm famous or whatever.
Can't walk down the street, can't go to Tesco.
But to be honest, I did get recognised at a Christian conference. Hope, you know who you are. She recognised me, and I was like, oh, this is what it's like to be famous. Wow. Come on. I need to remember to stay humble. Yeah, and then I did Rejoice, and I was like, no, this is what it's like. But honestly, I've just been so blessed because I've literally not released anything for a year.
It's been a while.
2021 was the last time I released, which was Rejoice and stuff. And I'm obviously, like, as I said, still piggybacking off the numbers off that. Like, it looks like I'm really active, and I'm like, I haven't released anything for a while. But at the same time, I'm just so grateful, because it's like, okay, God, like, you've led me into this, and you're not going to leave me. And even if the next project that I release is a complete flop, like, which it might be at the end of the day, it's fine. Oh, it's all about numbers, isn't it? So I'm not going to make it about numbers. But I know that He has led me, and He wouldn't lead me this far to leave me. Yep. And I love you will never leave me nor forsake me, which is repeated in the Bible twice. Like, and that is the truth. Like, God, you will never leave us in the times that you've led us into. And even though it might feel a bit difficult, it feels like quite hard. Yeah. He ultimately knows what He's doing. So I trust His word. Yeah. Okay,
so I've actually seen you perform live. I remember seeing you do the Gospelization Refresh night one night, and you actually had like a live band and everything, and it was incredible. And you often post on your socials and your stories that you do a lot of like open mic nights and like live jam sessions and things like that. Often in like we're gonna go there. Often in like secular spaces, or what we would call secular spaces. So I would just love to hear just about your heart for being a light, being a Christian in spaces that don't look conventional for Christians.
Yeah.
Say as much as you would like to say, but I just feel like you could really speak on that.
I feel very called to be in secular spaces. Like, that is definitely where my heart is like, no, this is kind of where we need to be. And I think, as we kind of mentioned before with the different scenarios that like churches can kind of create for Christian artists, I do think there's meant to be some that are on the ground, you know, that are in the world kind of thing. And I love like Christian music, and I definitely think there's a time and place for it. But I think there's also room for for artists who are Christian, who are in the secular world. And that's how I kind of want to word it. Like, I think if you say Christian artists, then Spotify just bracket you into the CCM, or they bracket you into the new Christian music or whatever. But if you say you're an artist who has faith, then they don't know what to do with you, and then they just hopefully put you where you want to be. And I think also because of the genre that I am, it's like that I need to be kind of, because who else is, you know? All the artists that I love are like, they're amazing. I love their voices. I love what they create. And their lyrics are what is the thing that kind of, oh gosh, like this is so frustrating, because I love listening to this, but I couldn't openly like say like I could sing these words myself or whatever, because I don't agree with it. So or maybe the themes that they carry, it's like, oh, that's not how we want to honor like each other or whatever. So for me, I really feel that call into the secular scene, and God has opened those doors for me in different ways, whether it's been gigs or you know, like the jam session that I went to like last summer was so weird. Like it was, but it was really cool. Like this room of people, because that's what a gig is. It's a room of people who want to worship. Like I know that sounds really weird, but people,
what are they worshiping?
Yeah. But people want to worship. Their bodies, like we're designed to worship. Yeah. And when people are excited about going to a Loyal Carner gig, which is, I'm going to that in a few weeks, so I'm quite excited about that. But when people are excited about going to a gig of an artist they really like, they come into this worship mode and they don't even know it. And that's where it's so interesting, because it's in our nature to worship, but it's in our nature to also worship the first thing that we see, and the first thing that we, you know, our phones or our jobs or the people around us, our relationship, whatever. It's so in our nature, but we just need to focus it on God, and that's what it needs to be. It needs to be worship to Him. And I myself as a Christian, like I've been a Christian for a long time, and I constantly have to fix my gaze back to God, because I can so very like naturally kind of fix it off. And it just reminds me of the Israelites in Exodus, when literally Moses goes up the Mount Moriah, whichever
one of the mountains,
one of them, for 2 seconds to get these tablets of stones.
And what do they do?
Down, and Aaron and all of them are starting to worship a golden calf. Like he was gone, well, he wasn't gone for 2 seconds, but he was gone for a short amount of time. And all of it, like their desire to worship something was so great that they created something themselves to worship. And it's just like, that is the world's desire.
That's the human condition.
It is a human condition. And it's like, let's not fix our eyes on the things that we want to worship and we find so easy to worship, but actually on God. Like that's who it is that it needs to go to. So when we're in those secular spaces, as hard as it is, you know, I find sometimes that I'm like, okay, God, like, you know my past, you know that I would like a good drink, like, or whatever. But keep me fixed on you, like keep me fixed on why I'm here. Like, let me have a good conversation with someone tonight about who you are and what I believe. And I have a few tattoos as well, and they're always conversational starters. It's like, why do you have God tattooed on your arm? And it's like, well,
let me tell you about him.
So I just, for me, I definitely feel called into that scene, and I don't think everyone is, and I don't think everyone like enjoys it as well. I mean, I don't enjoy being in those spaces. I was gonna be like, oh. But at the same time, I think there's like a level that God has kind of given me grace, and I'm able to come in without full condemnation, but the love for the people in that room. And if I can point them to Jesus, then, you know.
That's a really good point, Rebekah, because I think sometimes some artists are called into those spaces. They are called to be artists who are Christians, who can blend into those spaces, but also still stand out. Because I don't think everybody would make sense in those spaces. Not everybody could go to like an open mic or a jam sesh and like do, you know, praise and worship. Not all of it works for the people listening and for the person singing, you know. But my question for you is, for those Christians, for those artists, even like not even just music, but those people that think they're being called like directly into the lion's den, what advice would you give them to make sure that they are not consumed?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
And it's a big question, I know. You don't have all the answers, but
yeah. My advice is, like, you know, if you know yourself, if you can not drink and you know be in that space and be 100% yourself and 100% fixed on God, that's great. I definitely think that's a good thing to do. I think also, like, just constantly reminding yourself of why you're there. Like, you might have actually bought tickets to go and see someone at a gig or whatever, and you just think, oh yeah, I want to be here, blah blah blah. But like every scenario that we're in, like as a Christian, like I'm a big like evangelistic person as well. So I'm like, where can I share Jesus? Like, where can I have a conversation with someone? Like, try and see if you can as well. And then I would think as well, like, have a good balance of, I'd probably say 60-40. 60% is with Christians and surrounded by Christians and being discipled and in community and fellowship, and then 40%, if that's what you want, if you feel called definitely into those spaces alone, say 40% if you can, if not lower, like with non-Christians, because you never want it to outbalance you. If you're 80% with non-Christians, that 20% with Christians is not going to be something that's edifying you. It's going to be, I'm trying to balance it out, and at least I went to church on Sunday, but every other night this week I'm going to go and do something non-Christian related. It's like, you got to have the priority on God and like on with Christians. And sometimes I go through seasons where I'm really like frustrated because I've spent so much time with Christians. I'm like, hey God, like I need to be like, I need to like see so many people. But other times I'm like, okay, like get me with Christians, because I'm recognizing there's some weakness in me, and I'm recognizing that I need to, you know, we have to be self-aware. It's so important that we make sure we're on our guard and we're focusing on Jesus. So yeah, that was a bit of a weird analogy though, so I hope that's
that was
okay.
good. No, that's good. It's okay. Yeah. No, I think it's really important we talk about these things because obviously this is a podcast about women in Christian music, people that make gospel music or speak about the gospel in their music. But there is another side of things where some people are Christians and it's very much your whole entire worldview, because as we know, Christianity is not just a religion. Stay with me. Yeah. It's a lifestyle. It's a part of the way you think. It's the part of the way you speak. It's a part of the way you act, and it should be. And obviously, none of us are perfect, but we work towards Jesus Christ and His perfection. But it's important to remember that does influence the music you make. It does influence the art you make. It just might not influence it in the way that everyone else is influenced. Like, I make Christian content, but there's a lot of people who also went to journalism school who are just Christians that are journalists, who are just Christians who work behind the camera. Yeah. I just happen to be someone who's a Christian and makes Christian content. Yeah. I think that there is spaces for people like you, people that do make music that can be sung in spaces that are not explicitly Christian. Yeah. I just am always very weary because I've seen it like not work out where they've been able to lose the faith that they had. Yeah. Because like you said, the balance was wrong and the percentage was, I'm impacting other people. No, you're being impacted. You're being influenced. You're not influencing anyone. You're being influenced, you know? Yeah. So yeah, I think it is important we do have these discussions because people are skeptical of that, rightly so. But people are also too scared of it, where they're like, I just need to run Christians then. It's like, so no one's going to be impacted. No one's going to be brought to Jesus, you know? So, yeah, not quite a question, but I just wondered, when people ask you, like, or when you have conversations with people and you're trying to explain the call on your life and the desire to see Jesus be known in these spaces, see light be brought into darkness, how do you convey that to them? How do you tell them about it?
As in, like, how do I
explain what you're doing?
Sorry, yeah. How do I explain
what you're called to do? Like, you're like, you know how you said I'm an artist. I'm an artist that is a Christian. Sorry. How do you explain that to people?
Sorry, no. I don't know why I got so silly about that. I think I just word it like that. I say, I'm a singer who is a Christian. And as soon as they hear my genre, they usually think, it's not for Christians, is it? So like that's kind of what the vibe is. But also like anyone who knows me knows that I care about the lost, like who don't know God and don't know Jesus and haven't yet heard of like what he offers us with eternal life. And so it kind of comes out naturally in conversation. I have had a few people just be a bit confused by it, and yeah, like sometimes it's kind of, yeah, if you're working alongside another like Christian artist, it can be this kind of like, oh, okay, we're going after the same thing, like, and we are both working for music and working for Jesus, to kind of create music that edifies people and points them to him. But I think our audiences are different. Like our audiences will be different, and I'd love it if I, like, you know, let's say just did a gig once and it was like majority of the people in the room were non-Christians, but there was Christians there, because then I'm like, that's people on the ground, like that's people who are like, oh, did you enjoy that, like what did you think of when she said that? And also like a few times in the gigs that I've done, I've kind of shared my testimony between the songs, and it's been this really like, sometimes I watch it back and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cringy, like everyone's like kind of talking over me and I'm like sharing my life story.
Jesus loves you.
And I'm like, I went through a really difficult time, like, and people are just chatting about whatever. But even that has power, like that carries weight, because there must be someone in the room who's listening. Yeah. And it might be for the first time. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that does. I don't know why you keep saying that. It does.
Really,
it
like,
does.
I'm a people pleaser. Okay,
No, recovering, because no, I generally do think it's useful to have these discussions, because sometimes people talk themselves out of that calling because it doesn't make sense in the first. Like you said, sometimes people are confused, and we think because we're confused about something, it must be like bad and it must be wrong, and we must have heard God a bit incorrectly, even when God has sent you answer after answer after answer to be like, this is what you're meant to be. Sometimes we feel like we haven't got it. So hearing you speak might just be the final confirmation someone gets, and they're like, okay, cool, I'm about to make that album that people can like bump at their party, and they don't even like question if it fits there. But then they listen to the lyrics and they're like, hold on, this is different. Like I feel different from when I listen to something else. So you're right where you need to be, and I think it is encouraging to see you boldly like proclaim that. Even when you said about, oh, you know, I'm an evangelistic person, I like to talk about Jesus, I look for opportunities. That in itself is a testimony, because listen, I'm a chatty person, but I like to mind my business. I like to mind my business. My business, I mind it well. You know? So it's really encouraging when I hear another sister in Christ say, yeah, my heart is after the lost. I want them to no longer be lost. I think it's beautiful. So in whatever way you're going to do that, like, we have to champion it. That's why we're here, you know? It's really good. I'm so happy. I'm loving this conversation. I just think you have so much to give, Becca. And I really think artists watching this and listening this will be like blessed. I would love for you to kind of share a central message or like a central piece of advice that you've kind of like so far built your life on, and that you kind of try and radiate when you meet people.
I've recently been so challenged on like living by the flesh and living by the spirit, like the fact that they're so very different, and like and how, you know, kind of what we were saying earlier, it's like it seems almost like our human nature to kind of go towards the flesh and go towards the things that at the time seem easier. But actually God calls us to live by the Spirit, like when Paul is talking about it in 1 Corinthians, it carries such weight, because it's like, it's not just Paul saying it, he's also human, like he's also someone who has struggled, and God is speaking through him to encourage us that actually that is something that we can live by the Spirit, and everything can be different as a result of it. And I probably would just say, like, prayer is such a significant thing that we can be doing in whatever kind of environment you have, whether it's a creative outlet, whether it's a workplace or friendships that you're struggling with, whatever it is, like, just call it in prayer. And the more you spend time with God, the more your life looks like Jesus. Like, that is facts, that is truth. The more time you spend in his presence, you look different as a result of it. And I know that I wouldn't be sat here today as, you know, still a like shell of a human, you know, like I'm still like imperfect. I still have flaws, and I still can like so easily tap into my flesh. But actually knowing that God has redeemed me, like that I am filled with the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit guides me and it convicts me, it nudges me in the right direction, it leads me closer into my relationship with God.
Yeah.
And I think that is a core thing. Whenever you are starting something, whenever you're stepping into something new, that's what you got to hold on to.
That's really good, Rebekah. Like, I think it's so important that we as Christians, as creatives, as artists, as women, whatever label it is, remember that at the end of the day, the call is to be more and more like Christ. At the end of the day, it's us, having the spirit over the flesh, and our flesh not being the thing that is our first point of call. Like, I'm experiencing something that's confrontational. My response is fleshy. No, I'm ready because I'm filled with the Holy Spirit, God's very own spirit, and that's the first point. And I'm not going to say I'm like that. Yeah. You know, we go through seasons,
but we learn though. That's the important thing. Like the amount of times that I've like in the past lived by the flesh and now can say, no, I recognise that is the flesh, and what I'm going to choose is a higher calling, which is walking by the Spirit.
Yeah, that's so good. Oh my gosh, I've loved this. This has been so edifying just for me as a person. And we're really on to the final question, which I feel like this went so quickly. Yeah. But it's been a while. It's been a while. We've been talking. But this is kind of a SheHH classic. We like to ask our artists what they would like their legacy to be. So when it's your time to go meet the maker and him say, well done, my good and faithful servant, what's one thing you would love to be remembered by on this earth?
It's just everything pointed to him. Like, you know, even like I know that my music will outlast me because for some reason, like we have a platform where everything, you know, you still listen to like Ella Fitzgerald now, like, and she died a long time ago. So yeah, I know that will outlast me, but I don't really want that to be the focus of like what my life was about, or my focus to be like, oh, she was just someone who was solely after God, like completely, like anytime she was given a microphone, that's who she talked about, because that is who it's all about. So I think, my legacy would be that it's just all about him. Even when it's about me, it's about him. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's cool. Well, thank you so much, Becca, for your time. Thank you. I really hope everyone watching and listening was encouraged by my friend over here.
Thank you so much, SheHH, and have a good day.
Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating wherever you're listening to this, and to follow us on Instagram at SheHH Podcast.